Donald Trump is completely losing control, and he is dragging the entire world toward an unprecedented crisis. As we speak right now, European Union ambassadors are being forced into emergency meetings in Brussels. Why is this happening? Because Donald Trump has just made an announcement that sent a chill down the spine of every diplomat and economic expert in Europe. He will impose additional tariffs ranging from 10% to 25% on European countries if they do not support a U.S. invasion of Greenland. Pause for a moment and absorb how insane this statement truly is. This is not a routine trade negotiation. This is not a dispute over steel or aluminum prices. This is open geopolitical extortion. The President of the United States is weaponizing America's economic power to coerce our oldest allies into becoming complicit in an illegal military act. We are also receiving reports that European Union lawmakers are now prepared to suspend approval of the EU-US trade agreement. They cannot continue doing business as usual when their partner is behaving like an international bully. Donald Trump has made it explicit that he will impose punitive tariffs, possibly even higher than 25%, on any European country that dares to defend Greenland or has sent special forces to protect the island. Look at the response from Sweden, one of NATO's newest and most critical members. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson issued a forceful statement after Trump threatened to punish countries that interfere with this invasion. He said, "We will not allow ourselves to be blackmailed. Only Denmark and Greenland decide matters concerning Denmark and Greenland." This is diplomacy at its highest level of tension. When the Prime Minister of a friendly nation uses the word blackmail to describe the actions of the President of the United States, you know the transatlantic relationship has hit rock bottom. Kristersson affirmed that he will always stand up for his country and for neighboring allies. He understands that this is not just Denmark's problem, it is a problem for the entire European Union. Sweden is now engaged in intensive discussions with other EU nations, with Norway, and with the United Kingdom to coordinate a collective response. And what does that mean? It means that Donald Trump, rather than dividing Europe to make it easier to dominate, is inadvertently uniting Europe against the United States. He is turning allies into adversaries, all to satisfy his ego and his irrational territorial ambitions. French President Emmanuel Macron has also spoken out, and his words carry a profound warning that Donald Trump appears incapable of understanding. Macron stated that France is committed to respecting the sovereignty and independence of nations in Europe and elsewhere. He emphasized that this principle guides France's choices and reinforces its commitment to the United Nations and its charter. But here is the crucial point. Macron directly linked the war in Ukraine to the situation in Greenland. He said that it is precisely on the basis of respect for sovereignty that France supports and will continue to support Ukraine, and it is on that same basis that France has decided to participate in the military exercises determined by Denmark and Greenland. Macron was unequivocal. No threat or intimidation will influence us, not in Ukraine, not in Greenland, and not anywhere else in the world. Do you hear the message Macron is sending? He is speaking to both Putin and Trump at the same time. To Putin, he is saying, "You will not intimidate us in Ukraine." And to Trump, he is saying, "You will not intimidate us in Greenland." Macron understands that Trump and Putin are effectively aligned in these two threats. Trump seeks to weaken NATO from within by targeting Greenland, while Putin seeks to destroy NATO from the outside by attacking Ukraine. These two pressures are tightening around Europe, and European leaders have recognized the danger. Macron went on to say that tariff threats are unacceptable and have no place in this context. Europeans, he warned, will respond in a united and coordinated manner if such measures are confirmed. This is a clear warning of a full-scale trade war. If Trump imposes tariffs on Europe, Europe will retaliate. And who will pay the price? American farmers, American manufacturing workers, the very people Trump claims to be defending. When French wine, German cars, or Italian cheese are hit with tariffs, Europe will stop buying American soybeans, corn, and beef. The U.S. economy will suffer, inflation will spike as imported goods become more expensive, and all of it will be the result of Trump playing imperial games in the Arctic. If Macron's words aren't enough to alarm you, then listen to Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister of Poland. Poland sits directly on Russia's border. No one understands the value of security and stability better than they do. And Tusk said something that I believe all of us need to take to heart. He warned that if Donald Trump actually carries out what he is threatening, armed intervention in Greenland, it would be a catastrophe in the most literal sense of the word. Tusk posed a stark question: is this a conflict, or is it an attempt to seize territory? Then he laid out the most frightening scenario of all: one NATO member state, the United States, attacking another NATO member state, Denmark. If that were to happen, Tusk said, it truly would be the end of the world as we know it. He was not exaggerating. NATO is built on Article 5. An attack on one member is an attack on all. If the United States were to attack Denmark, then in theory the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and other allies would be obligated to declare war on the United States to defend Denmark. That would represent the total collapse of the post-World War II global order. It would mean the disintegration of the Western alliance, and it would be the greatest gift Donald Trump could possibly hand to Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is attempting to chart a very different path, one that the United States is rapidly abandoning. She spoke about creating a 700 million person market representing nearly 20% of global GDP through a new trade agreement with South America, which I'll discuss in more detail later. She put it plainly: we choose fair trade over tariffs. We choose effective long-term partnerships over isolation. Look at the contrast. Europe is choosing openness, cooperation, and bridge building. The United States under Trump is choosing closure, threats, and tariff walls. We are isolating ourselves from the world's largest markets. We are turning ourselves into an international outcast, and the cost of that isolation will not be measured in Trump's angry tweets, but in lost jobs, rising prices, and a long-term decline in America's global standing that could last for decades. Now let's turn to another story that is just as insane and just as dangerous, a story that exposes the boundless greed at the core of Donald Trump. Do you remember a few days ago when he posted about something he called a board of peace? Bloomberg has just published a bombshell exclusive by Alberto Nardelli. According to the report, Donald Trump told countries that want to join his so-called Board of Peace that they would have to pay him, yes, pay Donald Trump personally, not the U.S. Treasury, $1 billion to become a permanent member. You did not mishear that. $1 billion to buy a seat in his fictional club. Bloomberg obtained a draft charter, and it suggests that Trump himself would control the money. Think about what that means. The President of the United States is demanding that foreign governments transfer money directly into his personal pocket in exchange for political influence. This is the textbook definition of corruption. It is a blatant violation of the Emoluments Clause of the U.S. Constitution. But in Trump's world, the Constitution is just a piece of scrap paper. The charter has reportedly been deemed unacceptable by most countries. Sources say that even Benjamin Netanyahu, someone who has historically been extremely close to and eager to please Trump, rejected these terms. When even Netanyahu says, "No, this is too ridiculous," you know just how unhinged this really is. Many countries are now pushing back hard against Trump's draft charter and are working together to block these proposals. They are deeply concerned that Trump is attempting to create a rival institution to the United Nations, one that he could fully control, not just on Gaza, but on virtually every global issue. This means that despite Trump's loud promotion, the so-called Board of Peace has failed to gain support from key regional and global players. The White House has even confirmed the story, though they tried to spin it by claiming that the $1 billion payment to Trump is not mandatory. Oh, really? If you want to be a permanent member, you have to give me $1 billion. But if you want to be a temporary member, you can pay less. What are we even talking about here? Is this the foreign policy of a global superpower or the price list at a cheap nightclub? Trump is turning America's global standing into an item up for auction, and he's the one holding the gavel. And while Donald Trump is busy extorting the world and trying to pocket $1 billion for himself, the rest of the world is moving forward without us. Yesterday, the European Union and the Mercosur bloc of South American nations officially signed a landmark free trade agreement. The deal brings 700 million consumers together into a massive free trade market and was formally signed in Paraguay. Mercosur includes Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and its newest member, Bolivia. Think about the impact of this. While Trump is throwing up tariff walls against Europe and threatening the rest of the world, Europe has found a new partner to replace us. They will buy beef from Argentina, soybeans from Brazil, and minerals from Bolivia. And who gets left behind? American farmers. Midwest growers who voted for Trump believing he would protect them are now watching their largest export markets disappear into the hands of South American competitors. Brazilian and Argentine farmers will thrive under this agreement. Canada will thrive as well. Canada has just signed a new $1 trillion strategic partnership with China covering liquefied natural gas, LNG, electric vehicles, and canola. Canada is diversifying and finding new markets because it knows it cannot rely on an erratic United States under Trump. America is being boxed out, not by armies, but by trade agreements that exclude us. We are turning ourselves into a lonely island in the flow of global commerce. And as the dollar loses its dominant status because countries trade with one another in euros or yuan, our economic power will erode. Listen to what Mike Waltz, Trump's ambassador to the United Nations, said about seizing Greenland to understand just how bankrupt their thinking has become. He compared taking over a country to the difference between renting a home and buying a home. He said, "Everyone knows you treat a place differently when you rent it than when you own it. That is absurd. International relations are not real estate transactions. You cannot buy another people's sovereignty." And then there's Senator Jim Banks, who celebrated Don Bacon's resignation so that, in his words, we don't have to deal with rhinos anymore. He applauded Trump's attempt to seize Greenland to keep it from falling into the hands of China and Russia. The ignorance is staggering. Greenland already belongs to the West. It belongs to Denmark, a NATO member. The only way to push Greenland into the arms of Russia or China is to do exactly what Trump is doing now, threaten it so relentlessly that it is forced to seek protection elsewhere. But this battle isn't only happening overseas, it's happening right here at home. Yesterday was a major day in Virginia. Abigail Spanberger, the newly inaugurated governor, was officially sworn into office. And what was her very first act? She signed an executive order reversing former Governor Glenn Youngkin's mandate that forced local and state police to cooperate with ICE. She stated plainly, state and local law enforcement should not be required to divert their limited resources to enforce federal civil immigration law. That was a powerful statement about states' rights and about protecting communities. So how did Trump respond? He immediately dispatched ICE and Border Patrol teams into central Virginia to harass, intimidate, and terrorize residents. This is the behavior of an authoritarian regime, using federal law enforcement as a tool of political retaliation against an opposing governor. They are trying to turn Virginia into a war zone simply because its voters elected someone willing to stand up to them. And finally, I want to talk about someone who sold his soul to the devil and received betrayal in return. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. Cassidy, a physician, tried to placate Trump by voting to confirm RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health. It was Cassidy's vote in committee that cleared the path for an unhinged anti-vaccine activist to take control of the nation's public health system. Cassidy did it because he wanted Trump's endorsement for re-election. And what did Trump do? Last night, Trump announced he would back Julia Letlow instead of Cassidy. He discarded Cassidy like a broken toy. Bill Cassidy, I hope it was worth it. You are now personally responsible for elevating a dangerous figure who will dismantle vaccine guidance and could lead to the deaths of tens of thousands of children from measles, mumps, and rubella. You violated your Hippocratic oath. You betrayed the medical profession, betrayed your voters, and betrayed your own conscience, all for a pat on the head from Donald Trump. And in the end, you didn't even get that. Let this be a lesson to anyone who believes they can compromise with Trump. He has no loyalty. He will use you and then throw you under the bus the moment you are no longer useful. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living through some of the most dangerous moments in modern history, from blackmailing our European allies to plotting the seizure of Greenland to selling seats on a so-called peace council for $1 billion to the outright betrayal of democratic principles here at home. Donald Trump is dismantling piece by piece the foundations of the global order and the stability of the United States. But look at what is happening in response. Europe is uniting. Governors like Abigail Spanberger are standing up. The world continues to move forward and sign trade agreements, even as Trump tries to hold it hostage. This madness cannot last forever. If we stay informed and continue to resist, we will keep updating you on the emergency meetings in Brussels, on the world's response, and on the ongoing fight to protect democracy here at home. Don't let them wear you down. Don't let this chaos become the new normal. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.